Thank you for joining the Wild and Precious Life series tonight. As you always do when you come to the Wild and Precious Life series, you're going to have a damn good time tonight. I can't wait for you to hear our readers tonight. So, if you've come to the Wild Precious Life, you know I don't do traditional bio intros. That's just not my thing because I'm not that kind of person. I will introduce everyone, but it won't be their bio. So, first up is Aaron DeLee. I've actually known Aaron a long time. I mean, it's been a hot minute, and had the pleasure of getting to meet him when work took me to Chicago. And we're actually in a writers group together. And he's just a swell guy and a hell of a poet. So I'm very happy to have him here tonight. And so, Aaron, as your introduction, I am going to read a poem of yours that I enjoy. And it's an oldie. After it all. After the sock had been filled with thousands more of me, and after the ghosts had gone, you came through the door, an intruder shattering glassy silence with footfalls loud as gunfire, automatic, repeated, and me there, caught in the fray, doe-eyed, buckshot, nude. You came at me with lips puckered like a sphincter's, kissing my tense neck, shoulder, and cheeks, with a whisper that dripped from the tip of a wagging tongue, the same motion as a finger begging me to come closer, still closer. You came and went for my lips, but they waned open and closed, my mumble in your mouth, pushing you back, with worry clumped in the corner of your eyes. And I told you in the thrust of an arm that you were an afterthought to something already curdled in my hand. Thank you for being here tonight. The screen is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Dustin. And thank you for putting this together. I know how much effort and heart goes into putting together things like this. And I have not been doing it nearly as extensively or as long as you have. And it means a lot. Thank you so much for sharing this space. And I would like to share some poems with you all tonight. I put together a little sort of spooky set. The first poem I want to share is an elegy. It's an elegy from the perspective of a final girl. If you don't know what a final girl is, she's the one at the end of a slasher that's the last one standing. She's the survivor. But in this instance, it's a final boy. It's a final boy from Freddy 2, which is the gay Freddy, if you've ever seen it. And it's called Elegy for Ron Grady, from Nightmare on Elm Street 2's Freddy's Revenge, released in 1985. Nightmares are all I remember these days. Overwhelming heat that melts my vinyl records like DeLee paintings. Lamps become dripping lava. My bedroom is an oven in which I bake. And if I shut my eyes, I'm stranded on a pillar of rock crumbling into a fiery lake. A house is a body. My house is haunted. When I say my house is haunted, I mean my body is taunted by the man of my dreams, burning innocence like incense in a basement furnace. His shadow stretches twice his size against bare walls and hellish flicker. You said you only recall your wet dreams, and I wake up in as much sweat as when you and I would push ourselves down and up away from the earth, beneath an oppressive sun, in yellowing dead grass, just to fall back down again, our bare chests heaving tandem in deep gasps for breath, our skin glistening as glittery as our smiles next to each other. What it must be to love. Another without thinking, you're going to kill somebody. What it must be to trust that the one you let in won't turn into a monster. I'm told the heart has 4 chambers to separate blood without oxygen, a place we hold our past and future, blood that must run as we did in laps, circling around an expanse of the nothing blood becomes when so much is spilled and drenches our hands. I mean my hands, I mean this hand that is blood thirsty, whose fingers are knives reaching for flesh that is your flesh, that is so soft it slips right through. And you didn't blink, and you didn't move, and your broken bedroom mirror reflects 72 faces of mine a demon uses to laugh at me when I wake. It's me. Hi, I'm the problem. It's me. This next poem, speaking of Taylor Swift, is titled after a Taylor Swift lyric. You would break your back to make me break a smile. It's from Taylor Swift's Labyrinth. And this is essentially like a loose sonnet. Tying the knot round my wrists behind my back, the rope cinches and you pull me closer to myself than I've ever been. 20 years and I'm caught still by your touch. You're dragging friction across my open chest that will lead to tomorrow's bruises. It's what I've begged, for you to unhinge my jaw with a gag, leaving me speechless and drooling puddles of inarticulate at our feet. How you lift me up, keep me hanging, plum skin ripening sweet, sweat beating ready for your whet, is beyond my comprehension. It pleases me to pain, graceful as your fallen angel, suspended in midair. This next poem is also kind of a sexy poem. I was listening to Aaron Smith and James Allen Hall's podcast, Breaking Form, recently, and they mentioned doing a poem after Sylvia Plath's Poppies in October, but Poppers in October. And it really tickled me because I actually wrote a poem after Sylvia Plath's Poppies in October titled Poppers in October. And so I thought I would share that here. So this is Poppers in October. Even the bed sheets this evening cannot contain warmth, nor the man in the sling, whose rosebud blossoms through yellow jock entreatingly. A trick, a rough trick, wholly unconvincing without, through a vial, invisibly and stingingly exhausting its amyl nitrates through nostrils, burned to a sore on contact. Fuck me, who am I, that this flesh should melt on a mountain of man, on a rush of twilight. This next poem is less sexy, but something that happens maybe sometimes after sex is when you catch something. It's called Scabies. I say scabies and you hear babies, but no, they're not so cute, cradled in your wrists, around your dick, waking you up in the middle of the night with automatic itching, giving you goosebumps. I had to rub lotion all over them the last I tended to their screams, always forgetting that spot behind my knees, and cleaned so many loads of laundry I hadn't any quarters left for the eyes of my ex-lover who was dead to me. Speaking of trying to get things out, this next poem is titled A Stain to Scrub. And it's kind of a breakup poem. I fled you as blood does the body, through a cut across your pallid skin, the stinging burn of a dagger buried into tenderness of a back. I needed an opening, any opening, and to run from your beating heart, its chambers, to rivulet madly snaking this way and that. Even if my colors were to turn and I were to darken, I needed to fall from your grace, even if the air were to draw every ounce out of me, make me evaporate, leaving me nothing but sediment in the wake, silt, a stain to scrub, unwanted. Out, out, damned freedom never felt so good, as the warmth swelling as far away from you possible, or tasted as bittersweet as copper pennies change. This next poem is also in the vein of a breakup poem. It's called Pick Cheese. Pick cheese flew off the tongue in exclamation, a cuter pronunciation for pictures. One word of many we polished like a river, a stone, into our own to make life smoother. Our language painting the world a little bit brighter where we could. I held it in my mouth like a hand and flung it to see it skip off like you, further and further away, ripples emanating beneath every bounce hit before it sank. I had to take down the pictures of you in the hallway, unable to glance at those days we played with light in long exposures, where you held a rod and smiled magic without end. How could I glance at you with every passing and not recall the things you said? The way you gathered our nouns and verbs like flowers and burnt them. Without words, our lips become locked, sealed. And moving along with the breakup, a nightmare poem called The Wee Hours, W-E-E, wee. Only in the wee hours do we meet, 3 a.m. and here I am with you in bed, fast asleep. You always loved REM. It's the end of the world as we know it. My mouth opens for rotten teeth to fall through splayed fingers. I try to say sorry, but my words fall on cauliflower ears. I tell you I love you, but it comes out in a slur. I cannot do anything right. We used to worship the moon with fires out back, feeding their flames whatever we found. You once snapped a sprig of hyacinth, and the golden tongues consumed all that was lush so quick. I wondered if it ever was. Another, moving along breakup poem. Ghosted, after Denise DeHamel's Dear Memory. Nearly a year, and here's your garage door opener, still sitting in my car's cubby. I wonder, what have you done with my keys? I blame you for turning on me, cold and hard, for locking your lips and becoming invisible. I read you a poem I wrote about casting Armageddon in a game of Magic the Gathering, just as COVID quarantined the world. That was the last time you left my home, with a second glance around before you crossed the threshold. I asked if you forgot anything, but you wanted to simply admire what I had done to the crown molding, and then I snapped the deadbolt. It wasn't long until I dropped off an extra set at your house and kissed goodbye, taking your half-moon smile and hug like summer sun for granted. In a game we played, you once performed a gaseous form trick where you could never be hurt, and yet at the same time, you couldn't do a thing. I remember you always posting pictures of clouds against sea blue skies, suspended and floating free. Did I leave you, or did you flee me? Ghosts forget, wandering hallways where hung faces have a tendency to change. Lost and tucked in the back of some junk drawer on a rusted keychain is the gold one I gave you, I'm sure. And now it's to the dumpster with this relic, your opener. This next poem is another nightmare poem. It's titled 3:33 a.m. In the hour of the devil, I dream about you, naked and bound to my boots, arms wrapped round my legs, crying Lake Michigan's endless shore into existence. 2 willows, stark in the preserve we once walked, shed every leaf from their drapery. I dream saris pattered from your lips like rain hitting the pier's pavement in runoff. You know where we are, in bed. My legs tangle sweat-soaked sheets. My eyes slice the dead night. My eyes have not held you in 2 years, and yet here you are, removing the ball from your mouth. No, you say, not tonight. And last poem I'll read, A Little Petite Mort, is a Japanese death poem. We did these Japanese death poems at the Leather Workshop series. A Japanese death poem, just as an FYI, is often a haiku or tanka written by a Zen Buddhist priest or monk towards the end of their life, or an artist or a general going into war. And we all wrote one in this workshop series, and this one is mine. I'm also a sumie artist, a painter, and this goes, it's a haiku. My painting complete, I dip my brush in water, ink clouds fray, disperse. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Aaron. Our next reader is Sofia Fey. And so I'm going to read a poem of yours for intro. Before I do, I have to say that I listened to a podcast interview that you did on Coming Out Pod, is what it was titled. And I have to say, I thoroughly appreciate your honesty and openness that you had in that podcast. And I learned a lot, especially about demisexuality, which was I was ignorant of. So thank you for your openness, so that people like me can learn a little more when we need to. And I also have to quote you, and I'm not going to do it exactly like you got it, but you mentioned that there was a meme that was going around at the time that's that queer people can be forgiven for messing up on pronouns, but straight people better fucking get it right every fucking time. And I had to pause it and rewind because I was howling at that part of the podcast. But for your formal introduction, I am going to read a poem of yours that I enjoy, Music in the Mundane. There are still notes to sing, the rolled up towels on your shelf, meticulous melody of each tile you scrub, orchestra of orchid petals strewn across your altar, popular tune of When You Make the White Countertop Shine, instrumental order of your polished shoes, below the hem of your hanging color-coded wardrobe, choral pour of vinegar into the softener dispenser, like your grandmother showed you, rhythm of each biweekly deep clean, sound waves of smoothing out your clean sheets. You're so clean, baby. Sing. Thank you for being here tonight. The screen is yours.
Thank you, Dustin. I never read that one. I never really consider it, but then it's as we always talk about, it's never the poem that you think it'll be that everyone likes. So it's nice to hear what poems other people like, and thank you. Well, I'm so honored to be here. Thank you for having me, Dustin, and thank you for booking me with the bestie. It always pleases me to read with Dr. Taylor Byas. And speaking of Taylor, I'm going to open with what is the first poem in my book that's coming out, called Decompose, in March. It's called Everyone Calls Me Their Husband. Everyone calls me their husband, but no one is next to me when I wake up from the nightmares. Briefly, I consider the possibility of being a third in a relationship, not to have sex with anyone, but to maybe hold hands with 2 people who adore me. After pondering on that more, I realize that just means I want parents, which unfortunately checks out. Taylor says when I'm really upset, I avoid the question and make a lot of jokes. But Taylor, have you seen the weather? It's raining in LA. I've been laughing so much these days. Thank you. My next poem I brought today because it mentions black cats, which are witchy. I have this form in the book that I call both sides of the coin, and there are two sections within the poem that each have a section title. This poem's called I'm Not Mad. I'm not mad. Alone. There's two black cats a couple blocks from me by the bike path. They're a few houses down from each other and completely identical. The kind of black cats with long fur and pale green eyes. Well, I swear it's actually the same black cat, and they're fucking with me. Makes me smile when I walk by. Little trickster. And some people think black cats are unlucky. False. They're just the witchiest kind. Further evidence that this is actually the same cat, my own little Cheshire cat. Clouded. The veil is thin between fiction and real life sometimes, like this obscure sorrow I read about called Ringworm, the wish that the modern world felt as epic as the one depicted in old stories and folk tales, like when I was tiny and would imagine I had a dragon flying in the clouds, way above me when I was on the swing set, waiting for the right time to swoop down and rip my father's head off. Like soon would be the last time he'd twist up my insides. And that's exactly why I'm not mad at you. Sometimes we have to make real our own fictions, like when we're walking alone, hurting. Thank you. This next poem's called Dangerous. There's this really dangerous place. It's called Hell. I'm sure you're familiar with it. People love to take you there and call it something else. I've gotten pretty good at figuring hell out. Like, for example, this time, when it dawned on me that I have no idea what you want, I took a really hard look around. I noticed this scratched in message on the wall reading, "Get out," in my own handwriting. I wish I had written it bigger, but in my defense, I was probably very small myself. You see, I'm from here, so you couldn't hide it from me forever. I'm not really mad at you anymore, but I do wish you'd stop getting mail at my house. You didn't move in, you stayed for 3 weeks. That's a vacation. You don't change your address when you go on vacation. Thank you. Um, I'm gonna read this poem that's called Two Over Infinity that I've never read at a reading before. This is in the book. I've never even submitted it anywhere. Two Over Infinity. You made me feel seen exactly 2 times. The first, you bought me the perfect watch. No numbers, so it was difficult to tell the time, and wooden, so my superstitious fist could knock on it. The second, you couldn't sleep, so I sang to you. Just before you nodded off, you called me an angel. A statistician would call these outliers. This was all a big mystery until I opened the textbook. I get it. You wanted to keep me. You'd pay any price. I guess I had to learn the lesson again. The first time, I was too small to remember. No matter how much I suffered, you wouldn't be happy. It would be too simple to say anything died when I left you, except the plants. I left them outside. You slept on a twin-size bed so no one else could fit, and glued yourself to the wall when I joined you. I always envied your sheets, the way you suffocated them with your form, the way you were honest about it. Thank you. This next poem, well, I really have 3 editors for the book, Taylor being one of them, and Dia Roth being one of them, and Shira Ehrlichman being one of them. But Shira says that this poem is the heart of the book, and it very much surprised me because I never thought of it that way. And it's another one of those poems that I just never really submitted and never took very seriously. But I've been reading it since she said that. So, poem in which you get to be a kid for Gaia Rajan. You stub your toe hard. You cry and you don't. Daisies open their fuzzy bellies to you. You pollinate. Chlorine trickles nearby. The blue doesn't reach you. You hike up the hill. You fall and you don't. Finger paint is electricity. When you call, blanket is your first responder. You fall asleep on the floor. Somebody moves you. You swim. You splash a great deal. Somebody reads the books to you first. Nobody picks the colors of your shirts but you. You point and it's yours. When you speak, they listen. When your door is closed, it is closed. If there is a faint knock, you choose. Rain is just drizzle, and nobody publishes any of it. Thank you. I also never read this poem at readings, so I'm reading it tonight. It's called Fourth Generation. Shout out to anyone in here who may be generations into childhood abuse. Fourth generation. I've heard when one becomes a parent, they return to their source. Like seeds have no choice which plant they will bloom. Ripped from the tree, half ripe, I left myself out in the sun, but the window couldn't deliver what wasn't its responsibility. Sometimes I see the canopy collect the sky. Its roots barrel into the soil of should have beens. Then maybe I could pour sweetness into a pit. Thank you. This next one's called Dinosaur Spine. I don't know my blood type. There's no direct through line. I've never seen a tree bearing my ancestry as its leaves. I just know two people made me, though they probably shouldn't have. I say probably because I am alive and living well. Mystery isn't my genre. If I don't know already, I don't need to. The good questions don't have answers, and I don't ask questions I don't want the answer to. I'd rather widen the lens or narrow it. I don't know exactly what they did to me. Memory is fickle and changes to protect its keeper. I don't know the pills she was taking. I don't know if she was really going to kill me. A voice just said run. I don't know the chances of children like me surviving. Though I know they're mostly unforgiving, I say mostly because I am alive and living well. I don't know what damage was nature or nurtured. I don't have the answers. In theater school, they pointed it out to me, the unnatural shape of my spine. Goddamn theater kids and their massage trains. My dinosaur spine, they call it. They ask, did you get hurt when you were little? Yes. Thank you. My next poem is called Main Street, and it's another one of those little coin poems. Main Street. Familiar. I know I have a crush on her when she appears in the nightmare, becomes the most important ingredient in its recipe. This place of fear and high stakes welcomes her in sinister reverence. You're here, I say. Like always, before this, I attempt to escape from my mother. Now, I'm walking next to my crush on a street littered with pastel 50s cars. So stunning, I hardly notice the man careening towards us, laughing maniacally. I'm going to get you now, he says, bashing through the curve and onto the sidewalk. Now I see it is not just any man, but my biological father. My crush is gone. I'm about to be crashed into by a man I left behind as soon as I could. I am really scared now. Blurred. I knew I could love her when I couldn't find her in the fire. In Dream 2, we're kissing. It feels natural, though this is the first time our mouths collide in any universe. I tell her I didn't know she liked me. Of course I do, she says, her hand cupping my face with a purity that's only familiar in the peach-foggy ease of dreams. Then we are not together. I walk a Scandinavian-style street. I think I recognize the building we were warm-mouthed in, but I'm not solid on that. The lucidity has begun to slip through me like sand. The buildings to my left are on fire now, and one of them is hers. As with all loves I've known, I run straight into the flames, through the door I'm most certain of. I know she won't be there. Still, I call her name. Thank you. I'm about to read the other poem that was published with the poem Dustin read. Once again, thank you for that. In Only magazine. This one's called Sometimes We Are Wrong. My mentee, Jem Arbogast, actually said on the phone the other day out of nowhere. We were talking about something and they went, "Sometimes we are wrong." And I was like, nice. Sometimes we are wrong. At my grandfather's school, they let him play with mercury on his desk. Coca-Cola used to contain cocaine for a healthy hangover remedy. The radium girls painted radium onto watch dials from 9 to 5 until the poison ran down too many of their white blood cells. Smoking wasn't considered an irrefutable health risk until 1956. Heroin was used as a cough suppressant. Shark cartilage was thought to prevent cancer, even with 42 cases on record of sharks containing tumors. In the 50s, sometime around finding out we shouldn't smoke cigarettes, people infected themselves with tapeworms to lose weight. In 3rd century BC, we discovered the earth is round, but some people will still die on the hill that it's flat, and I thought you were it. Thank you. I've got a couple more for you. This one's called Beach Day. On my first outing with the LA lesbians, we roast our toes on sun-baked sand at Venice Beach, right by the Rainbow Lifeguard Tower. We wear name tags listing what a fellow ocean gay may need to know about them. They ask for name, pronouns, vaxxed or unvaxxed, and if you want to get a little wild, your astrological sign. As I write Libra, vaxxed, they, them, I relish providing information in pursuit of others' comfort. All I'd like to add is my secure attachment style, 92%, that I'm not dating or looking, but I deep dive in friendship. I'm a proud orchid father of 6. I listen when others speak. And if you were here, yours should say abuser in red. I picture you with a group of unsuspecting queers, gabies, soft-hearted, tender people looking for connection. You, grinning, wearing the costume of a good time. Someone sweet takes your hand, thinking you're a safe dream, that they got lucky. The first time I consider this, the contents of my stomach decide to split with me. Like a good boy, I let them leave quietly. Thank you. This one's called Pop. Spotify called my aura energy and yearning. If you can both dance and cry to a song, it's probably up my alley. 2 years and 3,000 miles later, I remember the way the air thickened when you first looked through my profile. When we were courting, we bonded over anti and in rainbows. Then you had me, chewed my music like it left a bad taste in your mouth. Now when friends tie me to pop, it registers as an attack. I accidentally let Ariana Grande make my top 5 artist, and she's always the beginning. You'll find me yelling, "It's Charlie, baby," when Charlie XCX comes on, and I'll never outgrow Taylor Swift. People are surprised I love her until I remind them I was socialized as a white girl in the suburbs. There's an astrologer who says Stevie Nicks' Venus square Neptune placement makes all her songs hexes that haunt her ex-boyfriends. I don't know Taylor's chart well, but I know when a man heard her, she had millions singing Dear John. You remember when you cut off all your hair and I kept some of it? A joke. I found it 6 months after I left. The witches were upset when I threw it away. Hair is a jackpot, almost as good as blood for hexes. I didn't come here to scare you. I'm just saying, I would have felt less alone if half the world joined me in screaming your name. Thank you. Oh, Jem, you're here. Little BB, hello. Okay. I have one more for you. It's called Unclean. Thank you all for being here. These are all from the book, so if that interests you, I think Dustin posted the pre-order link. Comes out in March. And I'll probably post some stuff about my tour soon so you can see if I'm coming to your city, in which case I'd love to see you. Unclean. I hope I feel whole again come summer. I put everything you wrote me away, and the little knickknacks, even the rocks you picked for me on hikes. Even the rocks. There's a spot on the mirror where you wrote, "You are perfect," which of course I erased, but after a long shower, its shadow came for a visit. I tried to wipe it away. No luck. You made me unclean again. In lieu of crumbling, I cocked my head back and said, "Thanks, bro. There will be a day where I don't hear you in every soft melody, man. The side of the bed you like to sleep on won't seem so separate to me, pal." I locked the door between us this time. Somewhere out there, you're looking at the same sky as me. That'll have to be enough, dude. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. I'm going to put that link back in there. I recognize a lot of people here as writers. We all know how important that pre-order period is, and right now decomposes in pre-order state. So if it is within your budget, I always say maybe you don't have the means to buy a book today, save the link, and maybe in a few months when it's out, you can purchase it, because the best way to support writers is to purchase their products. But if you're able to, give that a pre-order and support Sofia. Before I introduce our next reader, it's that time where I do that showbiz kind of shit where I remind you, hey, thank you, and check out the Bottom Precious Life series on our link tree. If you haven't, please follow us on all the social medias. If you're watching this video on YouTube, that link is down below the video. So give us a shout out if you enjoy the show and you enjoy the Bottom Precious Life series. Please do that on all the social medias, all of them. Not on TikTok, but do a TikTok about the Wild and Precious Life series. I love that. I mean, I'll post it on the page. Give us all the publicity that you want to. So our final reader of the evening, let me unmute Taylor Byas. I am going to read, actually it's a recent interview that you did with poets.org about your book. So I'm going to read what they asked you and your response as your introduction. 7 songs from the 1978 musical The Wiz frame I Done Clicked My Heels 3 times, in addition to influencing the book's title. Could you tell us more about this film's importance to you and what you think the role of popular culture is in poetry, as well as the role of poetry in popular culture? And this is what you had to say. For me, poetry and popular culture play similar roles. One important role that I think they both share is to provide a snapshot of the world and the society from which they come. So when I consider how they help one another, I believe they serve as points of connection and community. For example, if I read a poem that mentions a song or an album that's important to me, that poem becomes a door that opens into my own memory, and the poet and I step through that door together. When pop culture and poetry come together, I think it creates something doubly intimate. Here we are in the already intimate space of a poem, pointing to these highly specific cultural markers that work to define us, hoping a reader recognizes that cultural marker and, as an extension, recognizes us. That's how I feel about the importance of The Wiz in this book. The movie itself represents family, community, home. It's so incredibly nostalgic, and it's so special if a reader feels that too. A reader's recognition of that film creates a different and sacred space that the reader can then step into with me. Thank you for being here tonight. The screen is yours.
Thank you so much, Dustin, for having me. Thank you to Aaron and Sofia for reading alongside me tonight. And thank you to all of you who are here. I similarly was thinking about which poems are giving spooky sexy. So I also was trying to think about poems that I don't typically read. So I'm going to start with a poem called Corner Store. And I'm also going to end tonight with a new poem that's not in this book because, new shit is the best. So, Corner Store. Fluorescent red and yellow letters stutter, fair discount, liquor sold here. Metal bars cover glass, the owner's slapdash notes on the entrance, use the other door, no shirt, no shoes, no service, Sharpied on the back of old receipts. These aisles I can't forget. The quarter bags of chips I'd buy and flip for profit in our sock rot locker rooms. The frosted glass doors with their fingerprints and drinks I dreamed to taste test on porch steps. Older men who gummed out baby girl with smoke and corn chip breath they offered like candy. I ain't your baby girl, your sweet thing, you're nothing. At checkout, the man before me opens his 40, takes a swig while paying, pays extra to cover my chips, my juice, the fear that flowers in my belly when he slaps my ass, follows me halfway home. This next poem is called Wreckage. My first instinct was always to sink the ship, my earliest bubble baths strewn with foam glaciers. The blue rubber yacht nameless in water dark with my own dirt. Even young, I was gravity, a soft mass pulling tides from the tub floor. And the boat rode the choppy waters for a while, smooth as a trainer breaking in the newest horse. I knew only of my own joy, my own version of events. The ship captainless and unmanned, no faces painted in its porthole windows. The thing still whole when it hit the bottom. My mother towed it from the water, wet sleeved, nearly trading her wedding ring to the half suds snaking the surface. She flipped it upside down and emptied it, held it back out to me. Again, as I splashed water onto her neck, clear freckles across her glasses. I pushed the boat back under the water like the head of someone I loved but did not like. Again, I screamed. Now the ship changes shape and color every time I remember it. First a red and white steamer, then a neon yellow speedboat, finally a blue yacht once more. The water in the tub clear as the vanity mirror, freshly Windexed. Sometimes the boat comes with a small cast of characters, coin-sized dolls and their accessories to lose in the wreckage. Sometimes the boat can come apart in my hands. My mother is close, then far, cross-legged on the toilet or toweling her face clean of the day's grease at the sink. Most times, on her knees, the top half of her body cast over the tub's edge as she plays pretend. This one can be me, and this one can be daddy, as she places two figurines on the small deck. And this time, she sinks the boat, a gulp where it disappears, arms wet to the elbows. In this version, I hear the muted clink of her wedding ring hitting the bottom, and when I reach for it, she stops me. Leave it there. The tiny suitcases spill their contents. The couple loses their shoes in the debris. She doesn't sift through what's left behind. Let's go for a sexy poem. Dream in which you cuff me to the bed. And your voice segregated itself from the masked darkness. Your sung commands peeling themselves from the box fan purring in the corner. The last command nailed into the junction where my wrists meet. And you joked that I was like across the flesh, divine in how my body's rippling furnished your hands with warmth. And every touch was feathered with play, with tease. And there was a fine line between marking what belonged to you and marking what tried to escape your possession. And when you think about it, there is no difference between the two. And so you landscaped a field of pink weeds across the tops of my thighs, and the skin swelled in the cool after sting, an insinuation of a wound, and then the blood in quick remission. And you gently whipped new rib lines, red as a lip freshly bitten, because it all started with the ribs, you said, and even this ignorance was biblical, the way I saw nothing, knew nothing, until you were a serpent and fruit was waiting on my tongue. And I remembered you had wild ideas about pleasure, said the body usurps the self, and it was less that and more magic, a bewitching of fingers and friction, and it was less that and more exorcism, the bend of my back only half human when the thing leaves me. And once you said this moment after was like having a house in the suburbs, that after the hard yard work, you must tend to the flowers, their stems beginning to curve as they strain for light on the kitchen sill. And I wake from this dream, hot with noon, the day bucketed and kicked over, spilling into the room, and behind my sleep mask, I turn my face towards the sun. Okay. Let's go for the therapist asks me, what are you afraid of? I think of the word hunger, both a noun and something my hands are capable of. How my parents made a little god of me when they fed them, placed a snow globe in my palm's chalice. Inside the dome, a sleeping city I'd shake awake, shake back to their hurting. I promise there's an answer to your question in here somewhere. Every night, I whipped the glitter into a storm, and the same small figurines grasped at one another in the cold. Nothing changed this. Some nights, I wound the metal key for a lullaby, and when no one danced, I questioned my own God. I played the shrill song until it yawned into a dirge or some sort of warning, and I would say that maybe this is a metaphor for life or love, but I know you'd make sure to write that down. And you're nodding because you're so sure you know where this is going. Yes, sometimes even our most precious things can slip through our fingers. When I shattered it, I couldn't make a noise. A wisp of the music box's song escaped the glass like a spirit. There was no difference between the feeling of water and blood beneath my feet. You're leaning forward like this is gossip, and this too is another way to hunger, but my life was changed. I stepped right into the glass because I thought that would be the worst part, and it wasn't. Knifed an ugly tree into the soul. My scars grew fruit that scabbed over, dropped in the new season. The remembering hurt more than the living because shame dials in. Are you hearing me? I was naive enough to think I could control a life, even mine. Okay. I'll read two more from the book and then I'll read one newer one. This one is, I'll go with I Spy. The moon appears in this one. That's, the moon is a little Halloween and all the Halloween stuff. So we're going to read this one. I Spy. I walk outside through my apartment complex once the sun has set and the eye of Birmingham's heat has been switched off. Some residents walk their dogs beneath the flittering lampposts, leave the shit behind to be stepped in to cast someone's footprint in tomorrow's bake. Others sit on their balconies, uncap whatever IPA was on sale at the fresh market. The caps kiss the concrete like loose change. I come out at night mainly to watch the trees, their nighttime transformations, how when I stand beneath them and look up at the sky, the branches look like fingers culling the sky for pearls of light, how the moon cracks like a white porcelain plate behind their cover. I look for everything I've ever known in the bare branches, the frayed fibers of heat-damaged hair, the cartography of a river splitting its distributaries like offspring on a family tree. Tonight, I find the silhouettes of the teenage boys who walked my block in Chicago's South Side. During the summers, they cycled through different colored tank tops, and every night they anchor chained home, all branch and switch. Shit and damn were Jolly Ranchers in the mouth, syruping with the warmth of their spit. The wet tanks on their backs, a second pinched skin, blood weeded to a surface. And I never knew where they came from. It was almost as if they'd sprouted from darkness itself, pushing up through the cracks of the broken sidewalks, then duplicating, their shadows twinning like background dancers in the moonlight. And then the last one from the book, this is On Hesitation. This is also one of the oldest poems in this book. I wished I'd let you drive as the sky closed the lid on things. The headlights on the other side of the highway blurred to orbs as fuzzy as dandelions, my sight failing in the dark. But I was in a groove, wasn't ready to stop again before we crossed the next state line. So when you spotted a barn, a black stamp licked and pressed against the midnight blue, I stopped you before you even began. We don't have time for adventures. But this pattern continued, you straightening at each siding of wood rot, at every front barn door cracked open like a knife wound. Soon I tired of the cornfields, their sameness, the vanity with which they continued to spawn the self, so I indulged you, abandoned the highways smooth to spit gravel in the wake of your Jeep. When we pulled up to this barn, you dated its abandonment, at least 10, 15 years, because of the smile of the roof. The wind breezing through the barn's gut, its catcall whistle, and both sets of doors blown open. Your pulse two-step during our silent watching, and I thought you were turned on by this somehow, and my God, you were. Let's go in, find some hay like in the movies. And what of the pessimist in me, betting on the rustic charm of disarray as a trap, some chainsaw-wielding killer eyeing us from the Cyclops window? Even you could go rogue, one bite of me giving way to another, then another. But you've gotten out of the car now, come around and opened my door. We'll laugh about this years from now. Your hand in the dark, not how I always remembered it. Okay. And then I'll read the new poem as my closing. Thank you all again for being here. I find myself writing a lot about childhood and memory because there's a lot about my childhood that I kind of don't remember and that I'm remembering slowly. And so I'm thinking about my parents who are now divorced for a few years, but I'm also just thinking about like those earlier signs of their relationship sort of maybe having some cracks that I'm just now kind of remembering. So this poem is The Rotary Phone. The rotary phone weighed heavy at the top of the stairs, its dust skewered from any finger drab dialing the numbers. The curled cord limited movement, so all late calls were taken in the upstairs hall. Bad news haunted our sleep. Then time, technology, a sleek black wireless phone crying differently in the living room. Sometimes I eased the rotary from its cradle to eavesdrop on my parents arguing while my father was at work, their money problems on the line. Other times, I pressed the dial tone to my ear and waited until it moaned into something human-like. This is how I learned the difference between hearing and listening. I worried into the headset because I'd seen it done. My parents arguing still, but now on the wireless, my worry, an unendable coil hanging down. Then more advancement. Flip phones my parents folded their feuds into, their problems newly secret. The old rotary phone was forgotten by them, but still greased with my fear. It stopped ringing, but I picked it up daily. I practiced a kindness my parents couldn't. I didn't raise my voice. I said goodbye. I hung up gently.
Thank you so much. I was busy typing that one of your lines from the poem so to unmute myself. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for reading. The series only works if I invite people and those people say yes. So I'm always appreciative of everyone saying yes to feature in the series. And then we need people to be here to be the audience. So thank you to everyone that's taken time out of your schedule to be here to support the writers. Take a minute to look back through the chat, grab those links for the books. Like I say, if today is not the day to buy a book, save them. And when you're thinking of purchasing a book, I hope you will think of the books that our readers read from tonight. And I hope that you will be back on November 8th, 2 weeks from today. It's easy. Go ahead and open up your Google Calendar, whatever it is you use, put it on there. You know, you want to come back at 7:30 Eastern time and support this series. And then again, I know everybody's tired of me saying this, but don't want your money. Just want you to tweet, TikTok, Blue Sky, Threads, all of it, Facebook, you know, go back on MySpace, resurrect it, talk about the Wild and Precious Life series. I just want some attention on social media about the series. Recommendations are the best way to promote this series. We are moving into the holiday season, so I just also want to give a plug. Let's be safe out there. Please mask up when you're traveling so we don't have horrible surges during the holiday season. So please be safe as we get through the holidays. And I hope to see you November 8th. Have a good night, everybody.